Hello, I'm Janna, and welcome back to the Crafty Corner. Today, we're going to be having some fun with alcohol ink and lift ink. We're going to be creating a beautiful winter card, and we're going to be using lift ink and stamps to create some interesting effects. If you'd like to see exactly which supplies I'm going to be using, go ahead and pause here. All right, let's head over to the Crafty Corner. Today, we're going to be having some fun creating with alcohol inks and lift inks. The alcohol inks that we're going to be using today include Cobalt, Glacier, and Monsoon. These are going to make a beautiful wintry background. For stamping and lifting, we're going to be using Yupo paper. This is a wonderful synthetic paper by Ranger, and I am going to be cutting down one of the larger sheets into 5.5 by 4.25 inches. Here is our pre-cut sheet, and I'm going to turn this on the side to start. Now, the first things that we're going to need will include some isopropyl alcohol, and this is going to be coming in at 91%. And we're also going to need some blending solution to help our ink get moving. To start, I'm going to be taking some of the blending solution and drizzling a generous portion onto our paper. This is to help the inks start flowing. I'm also going to be pulling in the Holtz blending tool to help move our ink. So first, I'm going to be starting with our lightest color and put around 8 drops onto the paper. Since it's our lightest color, it needs the most on the paper. Next, we're going to be going in with some drops of Monsoon. Monsoon, I'm going to do maybe 1 or 2 drops less than we did of the Glacier. It's definitely a darker color. Now for the Cobalt. The Cobalt is definitely the most potent color that we're going to be using in our piece today. So I'm going to take it pretty easy and use about 4 strategically placed drops. I'm going to go in with the ink blower. Now, we don't want to squish the ink blower like we're taking blood pressure. That is going to give us spin art. We want to do quick, short puffs of air with the ink tool. That way we're moving the ink and not splattering it across our paper. So as you can see, I'm moving my hand across the paper and applying just a little bit of pressure at a time as we are moving the inks. Now, as I move the inks, they're definitely going to start evaporating and drying. That's not going to be too big a problem because we can always go back and add more blending solution, or I can lighten areas of our background with some isopropyl rubbing alcohol. All right, as you can see, the Cobalt has really packed a punch in our background. So I'm trying to keep it pretty well contained so it doesn't overwhelm our other colors. Monsoon is pretty strong as well. We've got some lovely workings around the edge, and Glacier is still coming through strong. Now, normally I would not care about having white spots on our background, but because we're doing lift ink, I really need pretty even coverage. So I'm going in with the isopropyl alcohol to try to spread the inks around more. So the rubbing alcohol is going to cause the inks to lighten a bit, but it's also going to give us some wonderful movement. If I'm lucky, I might get a little bit of degradation and color breakdown from the alcohol, but this isn't always guaranteed. All right, so we're just going to keep moving that ink around, and I'm going to try to cover up those white spots as best as possible. Okay, I think we're getting close to done, but it looks like we need to do just a little bit more work in the corner. There's still a pretty big splotchy white bit at the base. Okay. Taking that ink, moving it around, adding the air. Ooh, I'm definitely getting some very wintry vibes here. So I don't think it's going to be too big a deal if we leave a little bit of white showing, but I'm really going to do my best to try to cover that up. All right, let's go in with one more layer. We've added some more blending solution, and we're just going to try to get a little bit more texture by moving the blower over the still liquid spots. All right, now I can really see the ink moving. There we go. I'm starting to get some ripples, which is just what I was going for. Okay. I think we're going to be pretty happy with this. So now we've just got to put down the blower and double check that our background is not still wet or has any sticky spots. If so, we will have to address those before getting into the lifting. And there's our finished background. Okay, as I'm tilting this, I am seeing a bit of shine, so that does mean that our background is still just a little bit sticky. Though what we're going to do is I'm going to quickly switch the camera off and I'm going to dry that with the Ranger heat tool. Now that our background is all nice and dry, it is time to think about lifting. Now, the stamp set that we're going to be using today is the Stamp-Timber 2022 Tim Holtz stamp set. I picked this one today because of those gorgeous snowflakes. They've got so much detail that they are going to make a lovely background as we lift the ink from this inked Yupo paper. So we're just going to pull in a stamping block. I'm going to put the snowflakes on them, and now for the lifting. Now, the lift ink, like embossing ink, is almost invisible, so it's not going to have any color when we add it to our stamp. I'm also pulling in some alcohol ink cardstock because when we lift the ink, we're going to want to stamp that image onto another piece of paper for a bonus background. Okay, so it looks like we are all set up. Now it is time to ink up our stamp and see what sort of lift we can get. So we're just going to take the ink pad and I'm going to tap that out on our acrylic stamping block, and then we're going to stamp with good firm pressure and try to lift our ink. All right, I'm just tilting that to make sure that I've got good ink coverage on here. Now I'm going to choose a spot on our Yupo paper. We're going to stamp, lining it up. Good, stamping it down. Good firm pressure, and I'm letting it set for a few seconds, lifting, and there we go. We can already see that we do have some ink lifted on our stamp. Now we're going to stamp that down on the blank glossy cardstock and see what we get. This part is magic. All right, pressing it down, good firm pressure, and lifting that up. There we go. Now we have a multicolored snowflake, and that is really, really cool. All right, so we're just going to be repeating the process all over the Yupo paper using the ink, and we're going to lift multiple snowflakes and place them onto our glossy cardstock for a secondary print. Okay, next snowflake, pressing that down. Ooh, that is just such a pretty color, and I just love that we get a gradient on here. So we're going to stamp a few more snowflakes, and then we will put this video on fast forward as we stamp out the rest of our snowflakes. With our stamping complete, it is now time to lift. So for lifting, you can tell that we've definitely stamped here, but now we need some paper towel to accomplish the lift. The less textured the paper towel, the better the result you're going to get. First, I'm placing the paper towel down, pressing firmly, and then taking the paper towel right off. As you can see, we definitely have some easily lifted ink. Now I'm going to take a smaller piece of the paper towel and I'm going to start to dab and swipe. Here is the finished background with our snowflakes cleaned off and burnished. And they have got so much detail. Absolutely love it. Now we need to focus on our centerpiece for our card. And I have brought in the Tim Holtz Sizzix die Trim a Tree Colorize. This is a fun multi-layered tree that we're going to put together for our card. So we're just going to clear off our pieces and bring in our die cut pieces. So for die cutting, I used a combination of sparkling alcohol inked cardstock from my background stash, and I also used some of the textured Sizzix cardstock for the tree pieces. So right now I'm just weeding out a few pieces that didn't pop out when I did the initial die cutting. So I just want to clean up the tree base, and then we can start the assembly process with some collage medium. Okay, just brushing those off to the side. Now I want to double check that my other pieces are going to be lined up and ready for assembly. Okay, so I'm just going to kind of start smallest to biggest. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and take some collage medium, and I'm going to spread that onto the back of our tree pieces. Now, you do have the option of adding a double-sided adhesive before die cutting, but I have found with the sparkle cardstock that adding anything to the back of it, and it causes the die not to cut as cleanly through. So collage medium is a good way around this, and it helps us make sure that we get a good clean die cut. All right, finishing up the collage medium, adding a few bits of glue here and there. I think this is starting to look pretty good. Oh, looks like I've got a few spots missing at the top. I want to make sure that I'm thorough and that nothing gets misplaced. All right, so I'm just lining this up with the impressions on that base layer, and our cutouts from the top layer are going to have markings on the bottom layer. So that's really easy to match up the pieces and assemble our tree without issues. Now I'm just going to be easing the sides of the tree together to make sure that everything is nice and even. Okay, let's go for our next layer. This is going to be another piece of sparkle cardstock, but the ink on it was definitely a lot darker, so I thought that would make a lovely contrast. And again, I am definitely weeding out the base of the tree to make sure that we don't have any stray pieces sneaking into our finished card. Okay, I think we are clear of extra pieces. Now we're going to need some more glue. One of the really neat things about this die is that depending on the size of your card, there are lines that you can trim along so that you can resize this tree to fit your project. Okay, let's get that glue along the base. I want to make sure that things are not going to pop up unexpectedly. That's looking pretty good. So we're going to line up the next layer, and as you can see on the previous layer, there are still some die cut markings that left impressions that act as guidelines so that we can line up our pieces very easily. I'm definitely appreciating the crease rule that has been included in some of the newer die sets to help give us guidelines when putting pieces together. Okay, just checking that the top of the tree is good. I am loving this layered look. It's great with having all the different colors and textures. Okay, next layer. Again, more collage medium. We're just going to scribble that on the back. Now, if you don't like how uneven the glue is on here, you definitely could go in with your finger and smooth it out to have a more even coating of adhesive, or you could even go in with a paintbrush to brush it out. But I'm feeling pretty confident that my glue layer is going to hold. So we're just going to keep it simple and just scribble with the glue bottle. Now I have the second to last layer. And again, more collage medium and more lines to help us line things up. So we don't need too much glue here. We're just going to take that piece, layer it up, and move in for our final layer. Okay, that's good. Lined up. And last piece. So again, more collage medium. Honestly, I must buy at least 20 of these bottles a year. I love the fine tip nozzle, and it makes applying glue to small places so much easier. Okay, final piece, pushing that into place. Yeah, and here is our finished tree. That looks so cool with all the different layers. Definitely happy with this. So now that we have a tree, it's probably going to be a very good idea to decorate it. Now, I'm pulling in an old set of metallic dots. These are already pre-adhesived on the back. So we're going to take a dash of monsoon ink and a little chunk of sponge, and we're going to be custom coloring in some baubles for the tree. I am definitely in the mood to be working on a blue Christmas type theme. So I wanted to color the baubles blue as well that we're going to be adding to our tree. Though if you didn't want dimensional baubles, you could use the die cut ornaments that come with the die set. All right, I'm just taking the sponge, and just a couple of drops of ink are going to allow me to change the color of these otherwise silver flat back metallic gems. Now that we have our little sticky back metallic baubles colored, we can now place them onto the tree. These drops are going to look wonderful, and I'm going to be alternating them with some of the plain silver drops. Not only does this use up my stash, it also allows me to add some custom color to our piece. All right, so let's go ahead and just continue adding those metallic pieces. I don't really have a plan at this point for how they're going to be put onto the tree, except I just want to make sure that the silver ones and blue ones are kind of spaced out and not all clumped together. So my pattern is going to be fairly random as we're decorating this tree. And as we work our way towards the top, I'm starting with the biggest circles on the bottom, and then they're going to get smaller as we work our way up the tree. I like that that adds an extra layer of dimension as we're decorating the tree, because it's like almost kind of like forced perspective, where you're seeing larger things at the base and then smaller things at the top. Okay, that's looking pretty good. Do I want any more baubles? Just a couple small ones to balance things out. I am loving that monsoon color. That blue is definitely a great contrast to the green. Okay, so let's pick that up, take a closer look, and that adds a really nice touch to the tree. So now we need to attach the tree to our card. But before I'm attaching the tree to the card, I have got something to anchor it. I die cut a oval. This is from Stacked Layered Shapes from Sizzix, and I'm using the basic oval, which I die cut a piece of metallic cardstock to get a hollow oval that we're going to use as a frame to highlight the tree in the center of our card. So again, we're just going to grab a drizzle of collage medium. I'm going to run that around the craft stock oval shape, and then we're going to glue that right onto the card before adding the tree. Don't need a whole lot of glue, just a nice thin line. Okay, so we're going to just line this up, and I'm going to press that down and have that in the center of our card. And of course, the silver is definitely emphasizing that whole icy blue theme that we've got going. Now for the tree. I wanted to pop the tree up and add some dimension to the card by using some foam squares. The foam squares are going to give us some nice lift, and incidentally, these foam squares happen to be from Simon Says Stamp. These are a set of chunky, thick black foam squares. Absolutely love these, and they do come in 2 different sizes, which is very convenient for crafting. So just removing the backings of those foam squares, and then we can stick down our tree. All right, last piece removed, time to place the tree. Now the tree is going to be slightly bigger than our card, but this is not going to be a problem. We're just going to snip off that teeny tiny bit at the top, but we're just going to cover it up, and no one's ever going to know that we might have had to trim this tree just a little bit. So tonic snips coming in, snipping that little extra bit off. There we go. Now we need a tree topper. And for a tree topper, I couldn't think of anything better than a gorgeous faceted star. Definitely one of my favorite ideology elements. And that really just completes the tree's look. Definitely loving that. Okay, so the majority of the card is done, but now I need a sentiment. And the sentiment we're going to be using will be Merry Christmas, and this is from the Tim Holtz Ideology Label Sticker Sentiments. So we're taking that one and just splitting it in half because it is definitely too big to go all the way across the card. We're going to be sticking that in the top left corner. We'll put the first word Merry down, and then we'll line things up and offset the word Christmas just a little bit. I can tuck that right behind the tree, and we can still see all of the words. There we go. Ooh, really happy with the way this has turned out. Thank you so much for joining me here today at the Crafty Corner for a quick card using alcohol lift ink on Yupo paper. We threw in a few Sizzix die cuts and we altered some beautiful metallic droplets. I hope that you've enjoyed today's episode at the Crafty Corner. And until next time, happy crafting. Also, small side note, be on the lookout for the 12 Days of Craftmas coming soon.